Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager at PHECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guests may not represent those of the host of the station. So if you don't want to listen to this podcast, my guest, Meghan Smith Brooks, has been on before. On March 26th, she did an interview about her book that she wrote, which I highly recommend you read, Unraveling Grief, A Mother's Spiritual Journey of Healing and Discovery. You do not have to be a mom to read that book. It's for anyone who has had a loss in their life. Meghan is an author, a grief coach, a spiritual educator, speaker, and retreat facilitator, and she's also a unity minister. I have really learned a lot from reading Meghan's book. My son, Joshua, also liked reading the book, Unraveling Grief. It's on Amazon. I highly recommend you running to the computer and buying this book because it's really a fantastic book. I want to welcome Meghan Smith Brooks on, and we're going to talk about grieving and holidays. You're going to want to stay tuned, folks. Welcome, Meghan.
Well, thank you, Betsy. It's wonderful to be back with you. I always enjoy your chats.
Thank you. Thank you. Meghan, as you know, holidays are coming up. You know, that's a really rough time for people. I have to admit, I'm totally honest. It's a rough time for me from November through January. And I know it's rough for you also. Anyone who suffered a loss, I feel it's difficult for them. Can you give some advice on how to deal with holiday time?
Well, it is a very tender time for any of us that have lost a loved one. And, you know, though when I wrote my book, it was based on the loss of my son who was murdered. And since then, not quite a year ago, I lost a sister by suicide, and just last week my mother, who had dementia, just passed away. So I know that moving into the holidays this year is going to be, sort of that magnified experience of how do we celebrate the traditional experience, and with all of the, the decorations and the songs and the cheery merriment that's going on around us in the media and all of the Lifetime, Christmas movies and all of that stuff, when your heart is just feeling really like I don't even know if I can cope with the holiday at all. And so, first of all, I just want to honor everybody with wherever you're at, that to not put any expectations on yourself of what you have to do, but honor your heart and what feels like it would be meaningful for you. Because, I think that our holidays are meant to be meaningful. And so however we choose to experience it is what's relevant. So I do have quite a few things that I can suggest. And, and the first thing is really just checking in with where you're at. And, it's just it it varies because of all of our variable circumstances and our family relationships. And I think it comes down to, what are your family traditions? And, do you normally have big gatherings with family that all comes together? I know, for my family, I had 4 younger sisters. Now I have 3 sisters that are still living. And we used to always gather at my parents' house, with all our kids, and it was a huge, crazy gathering. Well, my father passed 15 years ago. Circumstances changed. All my sisters have moved away to different states. So the large family gatherings haven't happened for many, many years. And I notice that I feel like something is missing just because of that. Where I live so far away, I don't have any family that's, within driving distance of where I live now. So we can be impacted just by those kind of circumstances without even having a loved one pass. So it's like, check in with yourself. What do the holidays mean for you, and what's going to be relevant? And is there other people in the family that I should check in with? Maybe it's a time where we can plan together. How do we want to do our holiday gatherings this year? Do we want to simplify it? Do we want to make new traditions? If you gathered always on Christmas Day, maybe you do it on Christmas Eve instead. Break it up a little bit so that it doesn't feel like you're trying to emulate exactly what it would have been, so that the pain of the loss becomes more triggered. Because that's really what happens, isn't it? Is we get triggered.
Yes. I could tell you, I love the advice that you gave, Meghan, and it's so true. I feel like I have to honor myself and take myself where I am, and also honor how Joshua feels. Mm-hmm. And what I do, we haven't had a tree in years, so I decorate with my Christmas bears and dolls, and we go out to eat on Christmas Day. It's at that time from Christmas.
So it's like you're creating a new tradition for the two of you.
Right. From Christmas to New Year's is difficult because that's when Matt was dying in the hospital 2 years ago. So we still want to honor, the holiday and honor Matt's memory. But last year it was tough. It was the first Christmas without Matt. And, I'd be in the department store, I'd hear a song and I would dance to. I started to cry. I ran out of the store. I couldn't take hearing certain songs. And you know what? I honored that. To avoid my triggers.
Well, and that's what's really important, is that because our tendency is to, we're trying to make a little light of it, is like basically give ourselves an Academy Award for pretending that we're okay.
Yes.
Isn't that what we do? It's like, oh, I'm fine, and like we just go along. No, because what's happened is our family circle has been broken in some way. And so we may not have the same energy or even a desire to participate in those traditions that trigger the memories that are painful, but really what it is it's not painful. It's a reminder of our love. The deep love that we have, and which is why we're missing the one that's presence is no longer with us, right?
Right.
Because we have the capacity to love, we have these deep feelings. And so that's one of the things that I always go to, is like to remind myself to be grateful that I had this capacity to love, and to be grateful that I had this relationship and these special times with this person. And so I can still invite their presence into my experience of the holidays. And that's what we want to think about, is how do I honor their presence that I'm missing without it feeling like the elephant in the room and nobody knows what to do about it. So,
yes.
We may want to limit the number of commitments that we make, especially initially the first couple of years, where you're not really feeling very merry or extraordinarily grateful at Thanksgiving time. And let all your other family members know that you're not sure if you're going to be able to attend. And you know that you would like to, but you're just trying to honor your feelings and what feels what's going to work best for you. And so it's okay to say no to invitations. Give yourself permission for that. And then choose to participate as much or as little as you desire, especially if the event is more recent loss. So like this year for my family, you know, we're coming on the anniversary of my sister's loss. She passed 4 days before Thanksgiving last year. So last holidays were really just sort of like a blur for everyone. And this year our mother is gone. And none of us are going to be gathering together. But one of the things that I've thought about is how do I bring something special that acknowledges my relationship with that person into my experience. And so, for instance, my son has been gone for 8 years now, and what I did the first Christmas after he passed, it had only been 6 months, for Christmas time, I wasn't really feeling like decorating much, but I thought it might bring a little bit of light into my experience. That's one of the things that the Christmas lights can actually be kind of a healing experience. But I found an ornament it was a little Christmas stocking. It was metal, and it had a circle in the center where you could add a picture, and it had the year on it. So it was the year my son died, and I found my favorite picture of him when he was like in first grade, his school picture, and he had this cheeky little smile, and I put that in there. And every year now I have this little ritual of the last thing I put on the tree is this ornament with his face and a place that I can look at it and feel like he's with me with that sweet little smile that just is a hug to my heart.
That's beautiful.
Something that you can do. It might bring tears to your eyes, which is okay. You know, I always remind people to let tears be your friend. It's okay to let that. Tears are a reminder of our feelings of our love. And if we hold it back, it's not helpful for our health and wholeness. So let the tears flow. Have the Kleenex handy. Maybe at Thanksgiving, think about what would I feel comfortable with, but maybe there's something I can put on the table that would honor the love that their presence is no longer there, or maybe even have a chair that has a special recognition of inviting them to be with you. You know, only each of us would know what that special honor might be. But if we don't honor them in some way, then we feel like we're missing them, that they're not with us. So invite them in to the experience. That will be part of our healing process.
I loved what you said, Meghan, and I want to say my heart goes out to you on all the losses that you have had, and recently your mom. So my heart goes out to you, and thank you for coming today when your mom passed last week. That's really very honorable of you, and to share about grieving and the holidays. I found last year, well, it was early this year, I should say, because it was January 1st, and that's the day that Matt passed away in 2020. I said, you know what, I could sit here and be unhappy and sad, or I could be happy for the life that Matt lived, and I'm going to go out and celebrate because Josh was at a friend's house. So I went out and treated myself out to dinner.
Yeah.
And honoring Matt, I wore his memorial shirt, and I went out.
Well, and how did that feel?
It felt great, and I was talking to the waitress, and she saw my shirt, and she said the dinner was on her. which was really very, heartwarming and touching. But it felt good. I had an epiphany from Matt because I had carried guilt around for so long. And, I felt like Matt was saying, Betsy, it's time for you to fly your wings, drop the guilt, not thinking of that, go do what you're supposed to do. And that's just how I felt.
Well, and that's perfect, because part of it is honoring ourselves and our feelings in the experience. And aren't the holidays a time that, we seek some sense of joy for the fact that we're living? That's one of the things that I recognize in the process of healing after loss is that I have to be reminded that I'm still living. I'm still breathing. And it doesn't honor my loved one if I just become a martyr in my mourning and I stop participating in life, because there's a divinity that is burning within every soul, and it is creative energy. It wants to be expressed. And so what I have found is that we honor our loved ones by how we show up every day, about how we co-create in life. And the holidays is a wonderful and beautiful reminder of the meaning of life. And so part of that is also about honoring ourselves. So maybe we do something we've never done before but always wanted to have the courage to change it up a little bit. Or maybe it's as in the process of creating new traditions, you blend it with old traditions. So you don't feel like you're giving up anything. But it's making it enough that it's a little bit different so that we don't just remain in the trigger of the loss.
Yes. That's great. Excuse me. That's great advice, Meghan. And I feel like sometimes people feel pressure to be a certain way, behave a certain way in front of people, especially during the holidays. And I just think we need to, personally, I feel that I need to honor and validate my feelings and my son's feelings. And
absolutely. Because the two of you are creating that experience moving forward together.
Right.
So, another thing that I found can be really helpful is to maybe just volunteer to do something to make a difference for others. There's lots of volunteer opportunities over the holidays, to go to a nursing home, a soup kitchen, a homeless shelter, that, when we feel like we have all these feelings we don't know what to do with, then give them to someone that can help lift them up.
Yes, absolutely. Helping others, I know, helps me feel better. And that's true. I feel like with Josh, we acknowledged, especially last year, the first Christmas without Matt, that, it is sad, but that wasn't Matt's whole life. Those, 9 days in the hospital was not Matt's whole life. Mm-hmm. And we need to look at his life in perspective, and that Dad would want us to enjoy ourselves in the holiday and have a good time.
Absolutely. And so you think about how you're honoring him and the meaning of the holiday at the same time with what you're doing. And, if you feel like what you used to always do is too much, then just don't. If you used to decorate the whole house and the outdoors and everything, don't feel the pressure that you have to do that. Just do one area of a room, even if it's just a tabletop, or just having and I still do this, as I have a special memorial candle that I light in honor of my son. His birthday was also in December. So from December 14th through New Year's, I have a special candle I light every night in honor of him. And now I'll probably add a candle for my mom and my sister as well. But there's something about the ritual and bringing your loving presence into acknowledging your love that helps the process of accepting the holidays will be different. And every year it will be different.
Yes. Yes, I agree. It is a difficult time for me personally, but you know what? People think I'm crazy when I say this. I see the humor in a way. The date that Matt passed away was January 1st. And the reason why I see humor in that is because when we got married, he wanted me to pick a day he wouldn't forget, so I picked November 1st. So what day does he die on? The 1st. So I just saw the complete irony of the date that Matt died.
Well, you never know if what we have control over, or whether that was a little bit of a cosmic joke for you. I have to tell you, this really doesn't have anything to do with the holidays, but with my mother's passing just last week, I'm in Ohio and she was in Montana, so I wasn't able to physically be with her. And the hospice care nurse called and said, we feel that your mom is in the process of transitioning and she'll probably pass in the next 24 hours. And so I just had to sit with, well, what should I do? What can I do? I want her to know she's loved. And she was on morphine and not really conscious, but I called and the attendant put the phone up near her ear, and I was able to just let her know that she was loved and that everybody was sending her, thoughts and prayers, and we wanted her to just know it's okay to let go. And I sang her a little song, and she passed about 6 hours later. They called to let me know, but what happened is it was in the middle of the night here where I am in Eastern Time Zone. I had a special ringtone that I had set on my phone for whenever my mom called, so that I would know it was her, and I would drop everything and answer in case I just thought it was a whatever call. And we had canceled her cell phone 6 months ago when she went into assisted living, so that phone wasn't even active anymore. And I woke up in the middle of the night hearing that ringtone. And then I found out that she had passed shortly after that, and I feel like it was her soul letting me know that she was leaving, but we're still connected. And that was such a blessing, and I feel like that's the kind of thing that we can bring into our holidays, those special connections that we still have. We haven't lost them, maybe in the physical, and our senses are what is mourning for that connection. But we're still connected in our soul, in our hearts. And so just know that this holiday is our journey, it's our experience. It's not meant to create activities that cause anxiety and stress, but to find a way to bring meaning and a blessing into our heart, and our loved one is always going to be there with us.
Yes. Oh, I really love that, Meghan. What do you suggest for people who feel pressured by family members to, go to the big parties and they don't want to?
Well, everybody experiences loss and, and the variables of our relationship differently. I see that with my sisters and how they're handling things. And so one of the things that you can do for yourself is to have the courage to honor where you're at and to just let them know, how you say things makes a difference. You can just say, I understand that you really want me to be with you, or that it's important to continue to gather in this way, but it's just not, I just can't do it that way this year. And so could you please be okay with me honoring what works best for me? I will do what I can, but I'm not feeling like I can show up that way. And so when we honor ourselves, we're honoring what's meaningful and important to us, so that we're not feeling like we're dragged and pressured into something. And quite frankly, some family members may not understand that. And so I found I have to say I'm okay with that. That's their stuff. That's their way of trying to deal with it. But I have to honor what works best for me.
True. Very true. Meghan, I had to ask, do you offer grief counseling via virtual?
I do, and actually I call it coaching because I am not a licensed psychologist, though I've studied psychology, and through ministry I did a lot of spiritual counseling. But as a grief coach, that's specifically, and the difference primarily is that counseling tends to be looking at more analyzing where you're at and your family relationships, whereas coaching is honoring where you're at, but it's also looking at a proactive way of how do we move forward in a way that creates meaning and purpose in life. And so it's like maybe it's reevaluating what my goals are. What we start with healing the broken heart. And how do we move through that? Because until I can acknowledge the feelings I have, I can't begin to transform them into ways to move forward without being stuck. And how do I manage the triggers? And so when we notice we're being triggered, I always encourage that people take a deep breath and just honor the feelings that they have. And then as you exhale, say, okay, I let that go, and I choose how I want to respond or how I want to show up. What is a way I can respond in a way that honors the love that I mourn? And so that's part of the coaching process in how do we take baby steps through that. And I do everything online. That way I can serve people wherever they're at.
Oh, that's great. I think grief coaching is very, very important, and especially at this time of year coming up, and can't believe it's going to be November next week because there's people, this year flew by as people are in crisis. And, everyone thinks they're going to have this Norman Rockwell holiday or Hallmark Channel holiday, and, it's not their reality. Then they feel bad because it's not their reality, but everyone is on a different journey, I feel, and what works for me may not work for someone else. We just have to find what works for us, and sometimes we need some guidance, and that's where someone like you comes in.
Well, and the thing is that for many of us, we may not have ever had that Norman Rockwell experience to begin with.
Right.
So, and I noticed for myself, though I remember having some really wonderful family gathering times, I do start to feel that a little bit of angst and pressures, like, oh, the holidays are coming, and what am I going to do? So just notice that. And if you do have, I think I mentioned it, but I just want to remind you that if you have other family members that you normally gather with, invite them into the conversation and say, how can we create a meaningful holiday time together, but also find a new tradition that we can honor, our mom or our dad or our uncle or our aunt or our grandparents or sibling, whoever it is that we're missing, and invite them into that creative process of figuring out what that might be. And just because that can be part of the healing process for the whole family.
Yes. One of the things that Josh and I do is my anniversary is November 1st. I would have been married 41 years. I get I buy ice cream, and I buy Matt's favorite ice cream. And we have it as a way of honoring his memory. And I do this for special occasions. I'll buy the ice cream that Matt liked, and we have that plus our own favorite. And that's one way of I feel honoring Matt and just living and enjoying, life.
Exactly. It's bringing a little joy into your experience at the same time that you're feeling that you're missing his presence. I do that at Thanksgiving. Pumpkin pie isn't necessarily my favorite thing, but my son loved pumpkin pie. And so I can't eat a bite of it without thinking of him anymore. So I always have to have at least a small amount of pumpkin pie for the holidays so that I can feel like he's smiling somewhere.
Yes, I totally get that, understand that. That's why I have Matt's favorite ice cream, or like Father's Day, his favorite dessert. even though I cried picking it up, it also brought me joy at the same time because I have Josh because of Matt. So sometimes it's just a mixed, emotions. And I think people need to understand that, Meghan, that, you can be both happy and sad at the same time and have these mixed emotions. And it's okay.
Absolutely. And that's part of the process, I think, of healing through pain and loss is finding that I'm having to kind of adjust the space within me to include all these new and perhaps more intense emotions and recognize that they're a part of our human experience. They're a part of who I am, that there isn't one over the other that's better. We tend to think in our, our human reality that having positive feelings and joy and happiness and love is the be-all, the end-all, but that we're supposed to be, trying to create more of that. But we miss out on the fullness of life, and so I think the one thing that grief and loss offers us is the reality that it's inviting us to experience the fullness of our life capacity and to find room for all of that and to get used to the feeling of maybe I can feel sad and happy at the same time. That's a good thing.
Yes. Yes, I have to ask you this question, Meghan. This is another job for you. Did you ever think about writing a book? I think it would be great. And writing a book about dealing with grieving during the holidays, like with tips in there and suggestions.
Yeah, just specifically, thank you for the idea. I hadn't thought about doing it just that way. But, I realize now I have had so many different experiences from the pain of loss of a loved one in different ways. So it gives me the capacity to have the empathy for so many because each loss is different, it triggers us in different ways, and so it's creating another space within me. And as I move into looking at how the holiday experience will be, it's very different this year than it was a year ago, or 8 years ago, or 10 years ago. And so one of the things that I think that is really valuable is realizing if life is constantly changing, then maybe our holiday experience, it's not about trying to duplicate every year. Maybe part of it is saying, what is something new that I can create and add into this experience every year no matter what? And then then it makes it easier to adjust when I have loss because I'm already established the pattern of looking at a new way of doing things.
That's excellent. I love that. I love talking to you, Meghan. That's why I thought you should write a book. You should write another book.
I will add that to the list. I have 2 other books I'd planned on doing. One of them is about a sister chat and is dealing with a mother-daughter relationship that was very challenging. But, specifically looking at the holidays, we get so entrenched in how it's supposed to be. And the media, I think, triggers a lot of that and sets into motion this, it's supposed to look a certain way. And it's like, so don't get caught up in that. I mean, if it feels good, great. But, we're all different people. We all enjoy different things. So our holidays should really look unique and different too, right?
Right. That's right. I just love your advice, Meghan. And, I feel also, since losing my husband, I have more empathy and compassion that I never had before. And I lost my brother in January. So now I know what it's like to lose a sibling. And, you have more of understanding, really, of another person. And I just thank you for coming on, sharing your advice and your wisdom and for writing this book. I know your book is available on Amazon.com. Is it available anywhere else?
Not at this time. I'm it's like with COVID and everything, I'm working on trying to get into the bookstores, but you can get paperback or Kindle version. I've recorded an audio version, and I'm working on getting that out. I don't have a date yet, but it should be available at some time.
Oh, that's great. And how would someone get in touch with you about coaching?
You can go to my website, which is, you can just go to www.unravelinggrief.com, or email me at unravelinggrief@gmail.com, and I will be happy to respond to you.
Oh, thank you, Meghan. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and just, helping people at this difficult time that you are having yourself. And, people think they're alone, and they're not alone. I want to tell my audience, you're not alone. You're not alone in how you feel. We don't always want to talk about how we feel because we think we're the only ones who feel that way, but I can tell you you're not. There are difficulties during the holidays. We have difficult times. We had joyful times. And you could experience both, and it's okay. And
absolutely. And please don't isolate yourself.
Right.
In your loneliness, find ways to reach out. There's lots of resources, and the last thing we would want is anybody to feel like they just have to be alone and and thinking everyone else is enjoying themselves. So please reach out any way you can.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Meghan, again for coming on, and I appreciate it. Folks, if you feel that you are having difficulty in coping with a loss, please contact Meghan for grief coaching. Look into your area. Ask your primary doctor about counseling, if they can refer you to a mental health counselor. There's no shame at all in seeking counseling or therapy. It's a sign of strength. I go for grief counseling myself. I'm not ashamed to say it. We need help at certain times in our lives, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I always encourage that. I always encourage that.
I support you in that. It takes courage, and it's a sign of strength when we can reach out and say, I need some support. It's not a sign of weakness at all.
That's right. That's right. And neither is crying. I know those of us who were baby boomers, I'm one. I was taught, weakness is sign of weakness, and you have to have a stiff upper lip. No, that's old school, folks. We need to change. And it is okay to cry. It's okay to say, I'm sad, and validate your feelings. It's what we need to do because, as the saying goes, what we resist persists. So
absolutely.
Just acknowledge it. I know sometimes, Meghan, I'm like, I feel sad. I don't want to feel sad. And the more I don't want to feel sad, the more sad I feel. So
and that's just the thing. It's like I don't want to feel it, but I am feeling it. So until I can acknowledge it, it's like it's waiting for us to do that. So then we can shift it and, and shake it up a little bit. But if we hold it in, it's going to affect our health and wholeness.
Exactly.
So much of what we experience in, and whether it's mental or physical disease, comes because we're not processing grief and the pain of loss in life. Unresolved grief can really have a negative effect on our life. So it's really important to process it.
Yes, it can lead to, outbursts of anger. It could lead to illness. Ulcers, and whatever else. And addictions, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, numbing the pain.
And, the thing is that you might think you're numbing it, but it's going to be waiting for you. So it's going to come out and sabotage you or affect you in some negative way, and so you're going to have to deal with it at some time. And, in the interim, when you're very raw and vulnerable in the initial pain of loss, don't have any high expectations on yourself. Don't try to do too much. And yes, you may feel numb anyway, but how we treat ourselves, how we love ourselves, what we use nutrients, what we eat, how we do self-care makes all the difference in the world. So just remember to love yourself through that and love yourself through the holidays.
Yes. Yes, we need to show ourselves the same love, compassion, and grace as we show others. And I just want to tell audience, in the book, Unraveling Grief, that Meghan Smith Brooks wrote, there are exercises and suggestions to do at the end of each chapter that are really helpful. And I'm keeping this book, Meghan. I will not give it away. I need to refer to it. I need to refer to your book and having a bad day. And I won't give it away. I need it.
That's why I wrote it. Hopefully that it could help people, that it would offer something that's useful and that it can make a difference, with the things that I found worked for me, and also that it's a part of finding tools and practices that support us no matter what life throws at us, because then we can become more resilient, and so that things don't just knock us over, but we just take the time to move and find a way to move forward. We're meant to thrive. And pain and loss is just a part of our experience, and the holidays may trigger them, but we can find ways to honor that. It's like, okay, that trigger just reminded me of a deep love that I have. And so instead of going down the road of feeling sad, I can honor the sadness at the same time and say, oh, I'm so grateful that I could love and that I had this love in my life.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's why I love talking to you, Meghan. We're on the same wavelength, and I just love your nuggets of wisdom. Thank you so much. Folks, if you missed any of this podcast, you can catch it all over again on your favorite podcast outlet. I am on Spotify, Spreaker, CastBox, Amazon, just to name a few. It is free to subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, and you'll never know who I'll have on. And you don't want to catch any of my shows. You want to catch my shows because you don't know who I'll have on. Great people like Meghan Smith Brooks, great resources, great advice, and share it to help someone else, because you never know who you are helping by sharing a podcast that they might really need to hear, especially at the time of year that's coming up. And I want to thank everyone for listening. The information will be in the blog, so please read the blog. I want to thank Jeannie White, station manager, Passionate World Talk Radio Network, for writing the blog, producing the show, and Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Talk Radio Network, that makes this all possible, gives people a chance, a platform to be heard. And thank you for listening. Meghan, if you write another book, when you write another book, you know where to come. I'll be glad to promote you and your book.
Thank you so
be more
much,
than
Betsy.
happy.
I love this time.
You're welcome. Oh, I love the time with you too. Thank you, Meghan. And folks, it's holiday time, really starting next month. So I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, or a peaceful one anyway. Do what feels right for you, and don't worry about pleasing other people, really. We do things to please other people and hurt ourselves at the same time. Take care of you. Do what you need to do for you. And if people can't understand that, this is my philosophy. Not my problem. That's their problem. So that's how I feel. I'm a Jersey girl, and I say it straight up. Thank you for listening, and please be kind. We need it. Until we chat again, this is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy and Passionate World Talk Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye now.
Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, Station Manager, at PHECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the internet.